Welcome to the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Pluff. Each week, we will cover various topics that dads struggle with in their fitness journey. I'll give you actionable steps that you can apply right away, not only to take back control of your own health, but so you're able to be a better example for your kids too. All right. Welcome in. It's good to be here. It's been a few weeks now since we've had a new episode released, and so I'm excited to share with you a topic today. Kind of, we're going to talk about tracking. We're going to talk about the importance of tracking, and what it looks like and what it really isn't. And so it's been about a month now since we have a new episode, and there's been lots of reasons for that. Lots of things going on. Lots of changes to, I guess my normal weekly routine and things like that, and so it's made it a bit difficult to stay consistent. But but I've really got nobody to blame but myself, and so that's I've had this topic laid out now for a couple weeks, and it just hasn't gotten done, and it actually has worked really nicely because it's gonna play into today's episode, and I think it's an important lesson. And so I think tracking your progress is probably one of, if not the most important thing when it comes to actually maintaining and seeing results in any area of your life, right? Whether we're talking about calories, workouts, weights in the gym, your cardio performance. I think tracking, having a system of measuring progress is going to allow you to not only achieve what you want, but to get there in a quicker time period, right? There's probably tons of times in your life, whether you're trying to maybe you're trying to renovate the bathroom. Let's just do like a home project. You're trying to renovate the bathroom, or maybe you're doing a landscaping project or something, and you feel like you're making good work. But if you look back and you realize, like, I really haven't done anything in 3 or 4 days, or I thought I was making progress, but man, I'm just really not, moving the needle forward. I'm still in that planning stage. I'm still in that preparation stage. I'm not actually taking action. And sometimes we cycle through these phases, right? On paper, it's nice. We plan, we're prepping, we're taking action, we're evaluating, we're making changes, and we keep moving forward. But in reality, we plan, we prep, we take a little bit of action, we take a break, we plan, we prep, we take a little bit of action, we take another break, and that cycle kind of repeats itself. And this happens with weight loss. This happens with strength in the gym. If you look back, unfortunately, if you're like most people, you're probably lifting about the same weight as you were 5 years ago. We get to this point where we're comfortable, right? And then we go through these cycles where we get really disciplined, we get really motivated, and we start to make progress. We start to lose weight. We start to hit the gym a little bit more. We start to make progress. We start to increase the weights. And then maybe we get sick. And then maybe, you've got a really busy month at work. Your kids have got activities and things like that. And all of a sudden you fall into this, instead of doing a little bit, you do nothing, right? And that's why I wanted to bring on, that's why I was mentioning earlier about, this podcast. We have over 100 episodes now, which is fantastic, right? But I haven't been very consistent lately. And it's the same thing. I kept telling myself, like, yeah, I've got other things, I've got other priorities, which I do, and that's true, right? I'm not denying the truth in that there were other priorities I had to focus on this past month, but it doesn't excuse the fact, or it doesn't change what's actually going on, right? I haven't been consistent. I haven't been as consistent as I used to be, and I haven't been as consistent as I could be, and so I'm not seeing those results. Right? Doing doing this podcast is something that is kind of a passion project for me. It's something that I had an idea. It's something I wanted to do, and something in order to be able to get just reach people in different ways. I know for me personally, I love listening to audiobooks. I love listening to podcasts. And so that's why I wanted to create a podcast where I could help give people information and kind of short bites, right? Not overwhelm them, make it relatable, make it in a way that, they weren't feeling like they just had to set aside a whole, a road trip or something just to listen to an episode. I want to make it so you're able to listen to the show, listen to a short episode on the way to work in the morning, on your walk in the morning, during your workout. Something that is sustainable, right? There's some shows I used to listen to pretty regularly that are like 3 or 4 hours long. And I don't know about you, but that overwhelms me. That's an audiobook. And they make a show every day. And if I want to keep up, if I want to follow along with that, I get a little overwhelmed because I feel like I have to listen to an audiobook every day just to keep up with their podcast. That's what I didn't want to do with this episode. Or that's what I didn't want to do with this podcast. I wanted to make these episodes short. Now, obviously, if I'm interviewing somebody, I'm bringing on another coach, I'm bringing on, an expert in their field. Yeah, we're gonna have a longer show because I want to make sure that you're also receiving value, right? But in my head, I kept telling myself, "Oh, I'll get to it. It hasn't been that long. I'll be able to do it." And I looked back today, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, it has almost been a month. We're gonna about to go the whole month of August, and we haven't even released a single episode. Like that was a failure on my part. Not a failure that I didn't do it. A failure that I wasn't intentional. A failure that I did not plan that. Right in my head, I was succeeding. Yeah, we just released that last episode. It's been 4 weeks." Right. And that's what happens with exercise. You feel like you're doing really good. You feel like you're making the right choices. But if you're tracking, if you're being honest with yourself, if you're making intentional decisions, you can see what's actually going on. When you're tracking your calories, you can see what's actually going on. If you're trying to save money, if you're trying to invest, if you're trying to grow your wealth, you wouldn't leave it up to chance, right? You would see where your money is going. You would be a little bit more intentional. And that's what tracking is. It's just intentionality. And typically where we put our focus, where we put our intentions is where it's going to grow, right? You're trying to grow grass in your yard. You're going to focus on putting the seed down. You're prepping the soil. You're watering it. You're putting your attention. You're putting your focus there. What happens? You get results, right? If you focus on relaxing, if you focus on your recovery, you're going to feel better. If you focus on lifting weights, you're going to get stronger. You focus on your nutrition, you're going to feel better. You're going to start to lose some weight. You're going to have more energy. It's going to affect every area of your life. But you got to be intentional about it, right? You have to be intentional, not on just what you want, but what you don't want as well, right? If you don't want, if you're tracking your calories, chances are you're not wanting to gain weight, right? Now, obviously, if you're in a bulk, you're in a cut, or sorry, if you're in a bulk, you're trying to put on muscle and things like that. Yes, you're obviously trying to gain weight. You're trying to gain muscle, right? But we want to focus on when we're tracking, when we're being intentional about things. We're focusing on something that is attainable. We're trying to get to a certain thing. Now, tracking isn't what it isn't is that it's not like handcuffs, right? It doesn't just take away all freedom. For me personally, tracking was the first time in my life where I realized like I actually can eat some of these foods that I thought were as bad, right? Like I used to, I fell into that trap. I think the reason, kind of a sidebar here, if you watch coaches online and they're talking about don't fall for this, don't do these detoxes, don't do that. The reason why a lot of us are so passionate about not doing certain things is because we've all done them. I've done a bunch of different diets that I do not recommend. I've done a TD detox. I still have the box that the teas came in. It was not a fun experience. I do not recommend that. But the reason why we're so passionate about these things is because we've all done them. Coaches have done these. That we've fallen into these traps. We've fallen for the marketing. Good copywriting can lead the person with the best intentions down a road that they were never meant to follow. And that's what I'm trying to help you to avoid, right? And so I try and get all my clients to track in some form right away. Some of my clients take pictures of the food. Some of them weigh everything they eat and are extremely accurate. Some of them just write down what they want. Some of them are just kind of guesstimating, right? But there's levels to this, right? It's not yes or no. There's levels to it. We want to figure out how we can get you to where you are, to where you want to be, and we have to sometimes turn that dial up. Same thing when we talk about exercise, right? It's not an on and off shit, right? We want, instead of working out 3 or 4 times a week, when things get busy we go down to 0. No, we just dial it back a little bit. Can we get one workout in? Can we get one walk in this week? What can we do to move just a little bit forward, right? One of my coaches, one of my mentors always said, let's just get 1% better each day, right? 1% better each day, just 10% better each week, right? If you can just make improvements, if you can just get a little bit better all the time, all of a sudden you're going to look back a month from now, you're going to look back 3 months from now, you're going to look back half a year from now, and you're going to be like, oh my goodness, I've made all these changes. How did it happen? Because you didn't do it all at once. You took the time, you took the necessary steps, and you allowed it to progress, right? When you go from 0 workouts, not tracking your food, walking 2,000 steps a day to I'm all of a sudden walking 15,000 steps a day, I'm going to work out 5 days a week, and I'm going to track every single bite of food that I ever eat, it's not going to last because it's too drastic, right? We want to keep one foot in. We don't want to leave our comfort zone. Yes, we want to grow. Yes, we want to get better. But you want to expand your comfort zone. So you want to keep one foot in at all times, right? So you don't want to make drastic changes. Sometimes drastic changes work, but they typically work short term, right? You've done it. You've done a diet that you lost weight very quickly, but what happened? You gained the weight back, right? You've done a workout program that asked you to work out 6 days a week, but what happened? After a couple of weeks, you stopped doing it because you got overwhelmed. So you don't want to just leave your comfort zone all the time. You want to expand your comfort zone, right? So what does that look like? You're not working out at all. How can we add workouts into your week? Instead of going from 0 workouts to 7 workouts a week, right? Working out every single day, add 1. Do that for a week or 2, add another. Do that for a week or 2, maybe add a third. If that's doable, maybe that's where you hang out, right? Maybe you're really liking this thing and it's not that big a deal to get up early and work out. Then you can add a 4th. But chances are that 5th, the 6th, the 7th workout, now we're falling into the law of diminishing returns, right? You're not getting the benefits anymore. You might be. Maybe that 5th, 6th, and 7th workouts, one of them's a recovery workout. One of them you're riding the bike. One of them you're doing the treadmill. I don't know. But chances are you don't need as much work as you think you do in your head right now, right? But we got to see what's going on. We got to track. We got to figure out what's going on. As I started saying earlier, tracking was the first time in my life where I realized I could eat some of these foods that I deemed as bad and still make progress, right? I teach all my clients, I talk consistently about, I don't believe in good or bad foods, right? I think a food is on a continuum. Some foods are more nutritious for you. Some foods are less, right? We want to try and fill our plates. We want to try and fill our meals with foods that are more nutritious for us most of the time, right? So 80% of the time, we're eating lean meats. We're eating fruits, veggies. And the rest of the time, you're enjoying yourself. You're being present. You're enjoying your kid's birthday party without worrying about the calories. You're having pizza night with your family. And then the next minute, you're getting right back on track. But tracking can be extremely freeing. When you realize how many calories you're actually eating, and then you set a calorie goal, and you're hitting that calorie goal, and then you realize, like, hey, I can still have one of the cookies my wife made and still make progress. I can still enjoy pizza night with my family during the week and still make progress. I can still go to my mother-in-law's and eat her famous mac and cheese and still make progress, right? Tracking allows us to see what's going on and make an informed decision about moving forward. If you're not tracking your workouts, you may feel like you're getting stronger all the time. You've been working out for a year. You've been lifting weights consistently. But when you start tracking and you realize, like, I've been lifting the same weight for the past 6 months. I've been doing 3 sets of 8 with the same weight. I have not increased it once. How much progress could you have made if you would have started tracking right away? And there are tons of free apps. You don't need an app to track your workouts. Just use the Notes app on your phone, right? You're doing bench press. You do 185 pounds for 4 reps. Write that down. You're doing chest flies. You did 3 sets of 8. How much weight did you use? Write that down. It's very simple, right? But we make it really complicated, right? We feel like we need, just elaborate plans and stuff. I'll tell you right now, the people who see the most results are the ones who fall in love with the boring things, who do the consistent workouts, who do the same workouts, the same 2, 3, 4 workouts repeatedly over a year, and they make progress. They add a couple pounds here. They add 5, 10 pounds there. They don't make drastic growth. Now, if you've never worked out, if it's been a while since you've been in the gym, yeah, you're gonna see results a little bit more quickly. You're gonna be able to add some weight quickly because you're gonna have some neural adaptations. You're gonna be able to kind of get what we call kind of those newbie gains and stuff like that, which is awesome. That can be really motivating, right? When you start going to the gym and you're seeing progress right away, that can be very motivating. But after a while, that motivation, after a while, those early wins are gonna kind of start to slow down a little bit. They're gonna kind of wear off. And that's where you got to dig deep. That's where tracking comes in, right? Like if you're an experienced lifter, a huge win could be you just got 7 reps on this weighted squat this time where you could only get 5 for the past 2 months, right? But tracking allows us to see results. Tracking is going to allow you to have an accurate picture of what's going on. Tracking isn't, and it doesn't have to be, restrictive. Tracking can be the tool that's going to allow you to start making progress and then continue to make progress and continue to keep that motivation high as well. That concludes this episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Thank you for those of you who took time out of your busy schedules to listen. If you have any questions or comments or an idea for a topic for a future episode, please feel free to reach out, and I'd love to hear from you.